Okay. Hello. Yeah, how's it going? Sweet. Sweet. So, today we are going to talk about story flow. And my face isn't exactly the main focus here. It's this whole space right here. Okay. So, uh, story flow. Right? Beep. Right there. You cannot see that. Let's see. Would be fine. So that would be. Huzzah! Okay, cool. We found our. We have like a entire little kebab over there, but now I know where the focus needs to be. I can be like, hierarchical. Oh, this will be great. Oh, I keep farting. Why do I keep farting? Shouldn't have that trouble. Anyway, so story flow is pretty much how you kick things off. Okay, so you've got the start of it. Okay, this is just like that very first sentence. The galaxy far, far away, once upon a time, blah, 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 tale of cities and the best times, worst times. Okay, that's the start. So then you kick that thing off until the main character is introduced, which is MC. So that's awesome. So what's the main character gonna do? Okay, let's say this would be a thing, right? So um, ball bouncing, right? So that'd be cool. Ball bouncing. So that's cool, right? So this would be the main plot. There's also the other subplots involved because the main character isn't going to be the only one. It's merely going to be, okay, cool, one of many characters. So you have the main character, the secondary character, and then the tertiary characters. So the secondary character most likely is going to pal around with the main character until one thing or another separates them throughout the story. So that's awesome. Tertiary characters, not so much. They're like background characters or devices to move the plot along with the flow and everything. And then alongside the main character, who's often considered to be the protagonist, you have the antagonist as well. So the antagonist is like cool. So you have the main character who's chasing the ball. You have the secondary character who's, let's say, building a house. Building a house for what reason? They're connected to the main character. Okay, so building house. So how exactly does the building of the house involve the ball bouncing? Okay, cool, that's awesome. This is where the tertiary characters come from. Now, the tertiary characters don't exactly have to influence the total outcome of the story. They do have influence over like the minor aspects of everything. So there is that whole thing to consider. So the tertiary characters could be like, okay, so the main character has a ball bouncing down the road, so he's going to find the ball. The secondary character is building a house. So what connects that? How is that? Well, the tertiary characters are actually pretty interesting in and of themselves because they fill out the whole entire world. Okay? So stuff like the um, the mailman, the police, the grocer, the babysitter, the dogs, that kind of deal. So all of that is pretty much on point with everything. Right, so boom. So you have this thing which is dedicated mainly to that. Let's do some separating here, right? So we'll put various things, but each of these various things will eventually have to deal with first the house getting built, and then second the ball bouncing down the road. Maybe the ball bounces down the road and then a passing car hits it into the house that's currently being built. So there's obviously going to be some kind of mystery surrounding that, like what's going on in the house, which is where the whole aspect of lore comes in. Now, lore is what you use to build the world of that whole entire deal. So, say, okay, the house itself is roughly 2 stories, right? But what's special about the house? Okay, it's 2 stories. There's things and everything, and there's this, I guess, about a couple hundred years ago, it might have been the site of like an old graveyard and whatnot. So there's something like that. So, former graveyard. So you got yourself a little bit of a haunted house situation, right? Former graveyard in say 1500s. In 1500s, but since has kind of been white because history is kind of all over the place when it comes to that whole entire ordeal. So now with these 2 things, you have the basis for it. It's kind of like, okay, the ball bounces down the road, gets hit by a car, the ball flies into the build site of the house. So now is like the thing. So here is where it gets awesome because within this lore, okay, 2 stories, there it's a construction site, right? Boom. It's right there. So in this construction site, this is also part of the tertiary characters because then you have the builders. You have the secondary character who knows the main character, who's running the construction site that's building the 2-story house that's located on top of a former graveyard in the 1500s, but they don't know that. Okay. So these 2 are connected. This is knowledge that's not known. Okay. Hold on, where's my thing? So that is awesome. In this thing, we've already established a couple characters, the beginnings of an overarching plot, quite possibly supernatural, quite possibly mystery, quite possibly horror. You don't know because you haven't gotten to that point in storytelling. Because that is the whole entire aspect of it. It's like that whole entire creative process. You have to let your imagination kind of run wild with it. And that is where everything kind of kicks off. Because, let's see. Didn't know. So, alongside all of this, you have the antagonist. So the antagonist, what their job is to provide obstacles or stop the protagonist or like do a whole bunch of different things. this is ultimately going to be awesome. So let's get their thing going. All right. So with the various, let's see, we've got the random car. Okay. You've got the construction workers. Right. So another thing you can assess is that because there's a construction site, the secondary character is building the house, we can have the secondary character be either the owner or the foreman. Sorry, words are escaping me. Okay, and so the antagonist could be. They don't necessarily have to be trying to kill the protagonist. Okay, what they could be doing is trying to prevent the house from being built, but they're also trying to prevent the ball from being recovered because you just don't know. And that is pretty much going to be like just in this, you got yourself a good couple of chapters. Now, here's the thing, along with that main story, as soon as this whole entire thing is resolved, now let's say there's something special about this particular ball. Normally it'd just be a round rubber ball and whatnot. But let's say that, okay, let's say that the ball or the material that the ball is made from came from a forest, right? So then you have the whole entire MacGuffin. Right. So the object, okay, let's say that it's a special or a supernatural rebel, right? That's then for supernatural. Okay, and so something about the history of the house or the supernatural energies of said house trigger a special property within said ball. Now, what is that special property? Is it going to allow the kid to talk to ghosts whenever he's holding the ball? Is it like a one-time thing where he touches the ball and then those special properties are then imbued into him? Is it something that can be passed down, something that can be shared? Okay, so then we have ourselves something amazing happening. What's going on with the ball? Why is the antagonist and the protagonist after this thing, right? So are the properties either single use, where again, single is transferred, where like we were talking about before, the whole entire properties, the special properties of the ball get transferred to the possessor of the object, or is it multi, where you have to just hold the ball, and it doesn't matter how long you've had the ball. or who's holding it, the possessor of the object is going to be able to talk to those ghosts. Okay? So you have to think about the motivation for the antagonist need to obtain that ball. Is it for riches? Okay. Information. Is it for obtaining or is there something else? Control. Will that allow the possessor of the ball or the inheritor of the special properties of said ball to control the thing? So it's usually one of these four. So it's either money, wealth, or power. The three main things that we can break down from there. So is this something that can be activated? And here's another thing. Okay, activation. Is it merely touch-based? Is it touch? Are there words that need to be said? And or is it location-based? So right here, we've got something that is absolutely awesome. Now, you may not be able to see it, but trust me, there's a lot. I have to erase to enable to do the thing, right? So right here, for story flow, we've got our initial setup, the object, the properties of said object, the motivation of the antagonist, as well as maybe the initial motivation for the protagonist, which is primary ownership. Now, here's where the nature of the story changes up, right? So, say by the midpoint of the story, either the antagonist or the protagonist has acquired the special properties of the ball, right? So, let's say it doesn't matter who, but they've they've acquired gift, and let's say that this gift is to basically all three of what we said. So that would be riches, information, power, or control. So it'd be just all three of these things, right? So this kicks off the thing. In order for a series to continue, in order for there to be some sort of motivation to continue moving forward, there needs to be something that is a rival to that. So then there's a second ball discovered. And this second ball is pretty much the same as the first, right? So if one has it, the other has to have it, so that way there's a balance of power. So that way there's this equal opportunity for a thing. So in using this formula that I've talked about today, you can actually assess any kind of situation. How far do you want the story to go? Is it just going to be a single one? Is it going to be an entire series? Outside of the initial transference of the special properties of the ball that bounced into the house that was a former gravesite in the 1500s, and now there's a second ball, and those properties transferred to the protagonist or the antagonist. What is going on there? Because now we have moved beyond the base story. Okay, does this do these properties unlock a new area, a new specialty? Is there more information to be gathered? So there's like new area slash info to be gained. So, and new abilities. What can said person do with this ball? Like, there is literally no end to this. You can go as deep as you want or as shallow as you want, but it does not matter as long, and here's the important part, you, the writer, keep it fucking interesting, right? As long as it's interesting to you, you can manipulate the story as wildly as you want. You can either keep it as boring and basic as you want, or you can keep it fusion, or you can keep it as wild as you want. So say that the protagonist and antagonist end up uniting against a common threat, and in this unification they become friends, but there's still a friend rivalry going on. But in turn, the conquering of this threat against them both attracts an even greater force, and so they have to keep going forward, because not only were there the two balls, but now there's an entirely new area, and they need other people to join them that are going to help them in this adventure, and so it just keeps progressing forward. Now, here's the thing: by the end of the second and start of the third story, you now have that interesting ability to kill off main characters, either main, secondary, tertiary, or even the antagonist itself, depending on what is happening in that particular thing. Now, this is pretty damn cool, because it allows you, the author, to pretty much just be like, all right, cool, we got this thing going on, and everything else. So it really depends on your imagination and how comfortable you are. So yeah, that is kind of my secret recipe for waffles. Thank you for joining my TED Talk. You have yourself a wonderful day.